So we're going to kind of pick up where we left off with trying to work on this poster. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to parent one asset to another. So right now I have this arm and the scythe as separate pieces. But basically, wherever I move the arm, I want the scythe to go with it, right? So what I want to do is I want to tell the scythe, and down here where there's this parent palette, I'm going to say, have that scythe move with the arm and fist alone, all right? So now when I move the arm, the scythe goes with it, all right? Because they're parented. And so that's going to be useful. So if I'm pretending like this is a different version of this poster, because eventually I want to rotate this arm and have it hacking at the side, I could have set the position. And so first we could focus on movement. I can move these pair off screen, and I could say position there. And then I could move it forward in time 2 seconds and have the arm go across screen, which doesn't make sense, but I'll just do it for fun to show how it moves. And you can see that it's making what's called a spline. This is the path and all the points along that path that show its movement. And it automatically created a second keyframe, all right? So if I start from frame 0 and I hit play, it just moves across, right? So that's kind of goofy, right? All right. So that's fun. So you can see how basic motion moves. And I can change the position. So if at any point I can change the position, I can have the arm start up here, right? So now the arm is going to go from one point and it's going to go up and down, all right? And the reason it goes quickly and slowly is I have less time allocated to going up and almost twice as much time allocated to going back down. And you can see the corresponding distance between frames. There's a larger distance than between frames over on the right side. All right. So if I move this keyframe, you can see that the points start to change width. So if I move it all the way to the left, you can see there's only a couple of frames across which it's going and a ton of frames it's going across back down. If I move it across to the right, and I can inverse that, and then you can push it somewhere in the middle, right? And so now it's around the same amount of time. So we have this hacking arm hovering through the sky, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you're learning the basics of position and scale. So let's start over. I can highlight these keyframes, and I can just delete them. And so now I'm just starting over, and I can put the arm, which is still parented to the scythe, back into its approximate original position. Now, my goal is to rotate this arm, and so I've switched to the rotation tool. And if I rotate, I have a problem. The center point is at the elbow, right? The rotation point is at the elbow, when I need the point of rotation to be at the shoulder. So in order to do that, I'm going to double click on this layer, and it opens up in a layer tab. So we have our composition tab, and we have a layer tab, and it's the arm alone. Now the problem is I can't see it because it happens to be a black arm on a black background. So I can use this alpha channel toggle so I can at least see it. And if I keep clicking it, it just goes back and forth. So I turn it on for the sake of this, and I just grab the center point, and I'm going to move it down to the shoulder. All right? And now when I'm back in this composition, it's moved it. Notice it just moved it. So we're going to push it back down. All right, and I'm going to go to the rotation tool. And now when I rotate, it's rotating from that point. All right, so now it's rotating from the new point of rotation that the axis point that I've created. So I can start here, and I can set a rotation point. Oops, let's do it back at the beginning. So we can have our initial position, right? And we say, make that a keyframe. I can move forward a few, say a second, because I want to take a full second to back it up. And then I can move all the way forward, in a shorter period of time, say a half a second, to go all the way down, right? And so we can play that for now. Okay. And we could say, I want it to go even faster, so maybe I'll shorten that. And that seems more appropriate. And you can move a frame or two. And then I can pull it back. I could choose to, say I want to make sure that it's on a perfect loop, but I want to back it up to this position. I can copy that position. I can highlight that keyframe, copy it, and place the playhead where I want it to be approximately. So this is kind of it recovering. And I paste it. And now, as I play, but now I have to deal with, maybe I want it to sit off frame a little longer. So what I'll do is I'll copy that keyframe, the off frame keyframe, and I'll copy it. And move it over, and then keep that back, and then move this one, the recovery, back over here. So for a moment, it stays down. And so now we have kind of a loop. And I could keep fiddling with the positions. I could have it rest a little longer. I could have the recovery take a little longer. And now I can choose to maybe shorten or lengthen because it goes to the recovery point. And now the last thing I'm going to do is we can actually, right now, you can see this is a very frame by frame. You see the silhouette perfectly, but there is a default motion blur that you can enable. Now you can do it by layer. The idea is, like, first you have to make sure that globally motion blur is enabled. And now as I add motion blur to the arm, and you can see the arm's going, but not the scythe. It's like, oh yeah, I have to make sure the scythe is motion blurred as well. And so now you'll see the difference when it's moving slowly backward. It doesn't blur much, but now, and it's generating those flames. As it goes fast, it blurs. And even as it comes back, it's not moving quite as fast, so it blurs less. So it generates this blur amount for you. And it's rendering, you can see the yellow line of rendering. And so now it looks even a little more realistic. And so that's some basic, and back when I had it just floating across, anytime you have a layer moving via position, scale, or rotation, if you enable global blurring and have that particular layer blur, depending on how many frames across which you move it, you'll see more or less blur. All right? And so that's it for our next little